Hi, I'm Brian. Welcome to Autogefuhl and welcome to the facelift of the Macan Turbo. So, if you think, come on, facelift, I'm just going to hold out and wait, there is rather a lot more happening with this car than only some minor aesthetic changes. Lots of things to look forward to and talk about. We have a new, more powerful, lighter engine, completely different brakes, different dynamic setup for the drive, but still, hopefully, everything you loved about the previous Macan Turbo. So, how does that manifest itself in terms of what's happened to the styling? Well, I think quite a lot has been done here in order to refresh and really re-energize this design. It starts off with a completely new front apron. Now, if you're familiar with the Macan, you'll know that it's somewhat understated. As Porsche's smallest SUV, they've tried to really go with a styling and elegant feel. When you want to produce the new top of the line, the Turbo, clearly it has to be a bit more punchy and dynamic, and that's been achieved right from the front. Take a look down here. Wow. Well, to me, this speaks of a massive amount of confidence either in fate and your encounters with stones when you're driving on the road, or just a pure statement that really you don't mind, you're all about the drive. You have massive air intakes at either side on the front here, and that really visually adds up to a very bold appearance. Round to the side, you really can get a sense of just what makes this car so popular. When Porsche decided to enter the SUV market, a lot of people felt that it couldn't be done. The brand was synonymous with small, sporty, dynamic cars, everything you don't think of naturally when it comes to SUVs. But the reason that this has been so popular for the brand, I think, is because it's closest to managing to capture so much of that design aesthetic of the smaller cars in a more convenient, handy, larger package. So yes, you're going to get some compromises over space in terms of what you might expect from an SUV, but look at these design lines. And in this, the Turbo model, you have some nice extra features that really do help it to pop even that little bit extra. Now, everything, of course, is adaptable and changeable depending on your taste, but the features that we're looking at right here are a brand new color just for this car, and that's called Mambo Green. I like it. But if it's not quite your thing, there's also a fantastic blue. And if you like things a bit more understated, don't panic, there are still some nice grey colours to go with as well. Round at the back, I'm pleased to say that not that much has been changed. Now, I've been absolutely fascinated to see the response to the rear of the Macan ever since it launched as a new facelift. Surprised by how much negative response there's been amongst people. I think this is a great redesign. I really, in particular, like the way that this lighting strip has been carried right through the back and wrapped round into the side. A mixture of roundness and angularity of design, I think works really well, but not everybody has got on board with that. I hope that that means that over time, because it's new and a little different, it will be embraced as people get more and more used to the design. So for me, keeping the aesthetic of the original design as clean and unmessed around with really works for the rear of this car. This nice contrasting bit at the top, matching the styling of the overall flow of the back. I just really think the proportions work well here. The car looks svelte, stylish, dynamic. And of course, once you get down to the business end, really great finishing of the exhaust tailpipes here. But I'm well aware that this is an opinion splitter, and I'm really keen to know from the guys who weren't massive fans of this redesign when it launched, is it growing on you yet? One piece, solid body. That's really, really nicely done. Now, if Thomas has a slightly closer look at the engine, the very first thing you're going to see glaring at you is the 2.9 litre badge right on the top. Now, keen-eyed observers will be thinking, hang on a second, wasn't the previous one 3.6 litres? The answer is yes, it was. So this is 20% smaller as an engine, but what's really exciting is that it still manages to deliver 10% more power, 440 horsepower. That's a lot more than the predecessor. 550 Newton meters of torque, And of course, if you're going with the S Chrono, why would you not? That's going to give you a 0 to 100 speed of just 4.3 seconds. So we start with the key, and I have to tell you, I've always been a big fan of Porsche's keys. It's a really nice feature to be able to put your car keys down on a surface and know right from a glance exactly what they belong to. So this obviously mirrored for a miniature key-shaped 911 just makes me feel happy. It's nice and comfortable in the hand. It does its job. But of course, that's what it's there for, to allow you access into the Macan Turbo. And here we get our first glance of what the styling effect is like. So being a Porsche, I would say conservative and understated is how you can describe most of the styling, but it is a sporty car, and you can see that reflected here in the carbon trim. Now there are lots of different options to go for, so you will be able to find something that matches your style. For me, this is really the right balance between sporty and still conservative. I don't want an interior that screams at me, but at the end of the day, I did spend more as a hypothetical customer on having the top model, so I do want some nice design elements that just let me know that I have arrived. Once you sit in the car, you're ready to drive, you haven't spent 3 hours setting it up correctly. You know what, I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty certain you would really benefit from getting an expert to help you set up a seat like this and then never letting anybody adjust it if you got it. But don't forget, if you are sharing your car, they are memory seats nicely, which means that you can have it set precisely for more than one user at once. We have 2 analog dials. These are very well road tested, so they display the information crisply, cleanly, directly. But there's a very sensitive and nice application of a digital display in the 3rd dial here. Now, that's controlled by the steering wheel, and I have to tell you, it's really straightforward to switch between displays, so you can get exactly the information you want. Now, all of that's been paired by this. This is an 11-inch touchscreen in the middle. Well, you know what? It's not a bad system. It's not the most responsive you've ever used, but it's actually pretty pleasing. And the controls, as you can see, do have some proximity sensitivity as well. I'm not showing you that right now, but that means that it does unclutter the screen for you and make it a lot simpler to only visually access exactly what you're looking for. Of all of the steering wheels that I use, this is one of my absolute favorites. Now, I know that it's an opinion splitter having this microfiber cover on the steering wheel, but for me, it makes it feel really special. It's not unique to this car, it's on several other Porsches, but I really like it. Now, I think this is important to mention. Look at this. I have tiny, odd hobbit hands. And the result of that is that I like the way this wheel feels when I hold it. If you have large hands, you might find that this feels a little bit too small for you. It's perfect for me. The radius is great, the structure is really nice, but most important, it delivers a very impressive amount of solidity and good design feel when you use it. It really feels intentional, and that's only going to help you when it comes to making nice sporty driving choices with the steering. Coming down from the 11-inch screen, you can see a fairly standard affair of layout down here. Interesting, we visually reference what is to come in future Porsche design here with this chrome central part to the grille as we move away from manual controls and electronic design of the future. And now we come to my favorite feature of the interior, I think, paired perfectly with the steering wheel. I really don't understand why so many manufacturers get this wrong when the solution is in front of them. There are 2 features of your experience as a driver that must be prioritized. First and most importantly, the steering wheel. Secondly, because although in an automatic you won't be touching it all the time, the gear stick. In a sports car, it has to feel solid, satisfying, well designed, and really good in your hand. This for me is absolutely spot on. I love the way it looks, I love the way it feels, and when you pull it down to engage drive and off you go. It just feels great. And it looks pretty good within its context as well. So how about the rear? Well, you know, let's be fair. This is a compact SUV, so I would expect in the back to be a little bit of a forgotten space, because honestly, most people who are driving this car, I think, are going to be planning on 2 passengers and luggage. So those are the spaces that have been prioritized. But the rear seat passenger hasn't been forgotten by any stretch of the imagination. Again, I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters. I have just enough headroom back here to be comfortable. So I would say if your rear seat passengers are anywhere up to 6 foot, it's going to be fine. The car is actually very comfortable for 4. Realistically, if you want to take a 5th person, it is wholly possible, but I don't think they're going to want to travel too far like this. This is such an elegant solution, but best of all, because of its location, it's not going to get covered in dirt and muck. So honestly, if you're a bit like me and you don't wash your car quite as much as you should, it's just not going to be a problem. Now, once you open it up, you get to see the space that you have inside. Well, come on, it's a Macan, so you weren't expecting a cave back here. But honestly, I think this is more than enough room for 99% of anything you could ever realistically want to transport in this car. %20 smaller, but 10% more power. That gives this car a 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time of 4.3 seconds. Now that's because this has the sports chrono pack. So if you go with the standard one, that's 4.5 seconds, but either way, it's still going to be quicker than its predecessor, lighter and more efficient. Top speed of 270 kilometers per hour. That's an increase on the predecessor. And overall, the package should be leaner, tighter, and more dynamic. Well, we're just on the outskirts of Stellenbosch at the moment, so I can't really open up the car yet and show you what it delivers, but it does give me an excellent opportunity to talk about the driving experience. As you would expect if you've ever driven a Macan before, the seating position in this car is excellent. It delivers the same visceral thrill of sitting down in the lower down Porsche sports cars because the body is so high proportionate to your position within the car. You're low enough on the road to still feel dynamic, but it's quite nice, especially once you get round town, to have that elevated seating position, and I think that goes a long way to explaining just why this model has done so well for Porsche. The car that we're driving has the sports chrono pack on as well, and honestly, I can recommend if you want to buy the Macan, you should definitely go with that. Not only does it enhance your performance, but the overall experience of this car is really brought to life. Let me show you what I mean. That is 100% the best feature of this car. When you're driving it in traffic or around town, you have it in normal driving mode. It's polite, it's nippy, it's friendly. You really don't get any sense you don't want of exactly what you have lying under the bonnet. But when you find a bit of open road, put it into sports, and then let it sing. Oh, that is just lovely. Now, 4.3 seconds is not the fastest acceleration in the world, but for this car, it's perfect. Now, you might think that you can see the petrol dial whizzing round every time I put my foot down. I can tell you that the stated number for fuel efficiency for this vehicle is 9.8 litres. Well, as you would expect, that changes quite radically once you start using the accelerator, but not as much as you might think. In standard driving, sticking well within the speed limits, I averaged out at about 10.2 litres. Let's talk about those brakes. I can't think of a time in which I've driven a car that had specific sports brakes that were so pleasingly delivered. They strike the balance between accuracy and precision with comfort and ease of use. This car is not trying to pretend to be a sports car, but it does deliver a very satisfying performance. Let me show you what I mean. If I give it a little bit more oomph, well, that's the turbo lag in normal mode, and then let's brake. Now that was really gentle, precise braking. So unlike a sports car where you would expect much more immediacy in terms of how that impacts on your drive, in this car you get exactly what you ask for. So put your foot down hard, oh, the car will stop. But give it a little bit more gentle application, and it's very impressive how quickly the car comes to a stop from even significant speed. That adds to the driving experience so nicely, because the most fun you can have in this car is unquestionably overtaking, and being able to do that fast and safely feels really nice. So you're going to want to be doing lots of it, which is great. It's the fun element that you want in a compact SUV. So we're going to need to have a quick conversation about sound. There is very little point in buying a Porsche unless it sounds like a Porsche. Now that's a problem in the modern world, because as engines become more efficient, naturally they make less noise. Now this engine is smaller and lighter than the predecessor, so that should have an impact on sound. Starting off in standard mode, I want to show you a little bit about what the standard acceleration and the standard sound experience is. So here we go. Cold start, foot down. Nice response, nothing to scare anyone. Good and steady. The turbos sound nice, but very controlled. So as you can hear, the cabin noise is really good. I'm not in any way being distracted by what's happening with the engine, but okay, that's for regular day-to-day driving. What happens when we put it in Sports Plus? Well, first thing that happens, as you may detect on the microphone, is the engine note has changed. So, a lot more satisfactory in the sound department. But I think you have to remember here, the most important point is that you're not going to be driving your car like this all the time. At least I hope you're not. So it's important that the car strikes the right balance between delivering what you want when you do put your foot down and the standard driving experience. This is the top version of the Macan, so clearly that's not going to come to you cheaply. The entry price for this model is just shy of €92,000, but when you start adding those options, obviously the price goes up. So, in sum, if you want a compact SUV that is sporty, fun, dynamic, while still put a big grin on your face, and you just can't hold out to see what the electric one can deliver, then get this car. It is all kinds of great. But if, like me, you've had your expectations slightly ruined by driving the Taycan, you just might want to wait that little bit longer to find out if the future is ready to come to you. I hope you've enjoyed watching this clip. Please subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, please put them below. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope we'll see you again soon.